we know about your myths, we're carried this on, and now we're even building these rockets ourselves, you know. So it's
Sure. I mean, the whole phallic imagery is really important, but sort of an interesting note on the shape of the rockets, like you're saying, is also evident in science fiction movies. And if I want to go back to 2001 again, the ship in I don't know if it's 2001 or 2010, it looks like basically the bone that the monkey was throwing up when he found the first monolith.
That's right.
So, you know, it's like sort of they're shaped even like the evolutionary stages that we're going through. It's just so bizarre. And then again, that's where fiction and dreams sort of blur into reality, and you're like, what is going on? Am I watching a movie in real life? What is happening to me?
Exactly. And what is interesting to note here is that I think it was Lockheed Martin who actually won the contracts to build the new space shuttles that are going in. I can't remember on the top of my head here the date, but I actually think it was 2010 or up to 2015, somewhere in between there, I think. Totally new design, new efforts going in. It might be some kind of signal, at least, who knows, but that there are, you know, larger endeavors now to actually reach deeper out or you know, more out in the solar system and begin another phase in the space explorations. We'll have to see what happens there, I guess.
Exactly. You hit the symbolism on the head, and it's not just our ships flying out there. You know, it's things that are happening here on Earth, like the crop circles that Jake's done some great research lately. He visited Ben Fairhill out in England, and he did some research on the checkerboard crop circle that was in West Kennet Longbarrow.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it just starts popping up. Once you see it once, again, when you recognize patterns in any equation, they start to appear more frequently, sort of the 23 scenario, the number 23. You start seeing it everywhere if you focus on it. But, I mean, the movie Poltergeist 3, you have Heather O'Rourke, who you know, had a mysteriously ailment and died at a very young age. And it takes place in a large tower. And there's a scene in the movie that is almost identical to sort of this checkerboard crop circle with the doors on either side of it. Sort of lending to Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception or the psychedelic experience and the checkerboard. And you have it in a large tower. Then you have The Matrix Reloaded, which is also in a large tower, in a similar sequence when Neo and them are trying to walk through the corridors of the Matrix to find the architect. There's another sequence where the hallway is laid out, you know, with doors on either side. Again, the Aldous Huxley, you know, phenomenon, right back in your face again. And I mean, it happens so many times. Beetlejuice, even. You ever see Beetlejuice?
Oh, yeah, a long time ago, but yes.
There, you know, Alec Baldwin is walking through the corridor, and there's checkerboards on the floor, and there's doorways on both sides, and the doorway opens up to a chamber that's supposedly where the dead go when they die. So, I mean, it's the same symbolism as the checkerboard crop circle. And if you notice, any movie that has sort of Alice in Wonderland themes behind it, or sort of Search the Rabbit Hole, they always do phenomenally well. Because it sort of gives people a distance and a comfort zone to sort of peer down the looking glass, or peer through the looking glass rather, and not have to go in themselves. But it's you know, Heather O'Rourke in the Poltergeist movie is dressed in red all the time. She has long blonde hair, and you know, basically resonates the Alice figure. But it's a horror movie. It has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with Alice in Wonderland on the surface, but in your subconscious it does. And they have her, you know, going through water doors. There's a scene in the movie where she's in a car garage where she gets sucked through a water vortex, and as I've researched certain Silver Surfer elements, he goes through water doors, so it's kind of synonymous with the Stargate as well. So you have this Alice in Wonderland character flying through, you know, water vortices, dressed in red like Alice, and then there's a scene in the movie that has the direct crop circle checkerboard motif. It's like, how do these things get in here? It's incredible to me, really.
Absolutely, it's interesting, and these are also, of course, kind of archetypal stories that seem to, you know, come and go. They're picked up again and again and again, and I think also, just as you say, they pick up on that okay, this was a successful story or a successful film, and they're trying to analyze that and understand, okay, what was it about this movie that, you know, separates from all these other ones? So they know what people like, and they probably have, you know, a lot of work ahead of time on these movies, and certainly afterwards to see why, and you know, why some aren't so successful. So it seems to be in some level, I guess, that this also kind of refines what the entertainment we get is, meaning that if they are successful for some reason, that they align themselves more towards that in future projects, meaning that in some way we actually control what we get to see through the silver screen, you know.
Again, that's the collective consciousness working, and that's what I'm talking about. It's not always about a grand conspiracy. It's about what we're producing as sort of conglomerate of our species. It's what we're producing through our consciousness, and it's quite amazing because it doesn't just stop at the obvious. The checkerboard theme that we were just talking about, the crop circle. In Tim Burton's movies, I mentioned Beetlejuice, but in his movies, he always has the black and white stripe motif in the aesthetics of his films. Mm. Now, this is, corresponding with, a zebra or a stripe pattern, and that's also symbolic of the checkerboard and therefore also a symbolism of the Stargate. And you have even things like, the Beatles cover in Abbey Road when they're crossing the road in sort of the funeral procession with Paul McCartney being the corpse in that because he has no shoes on. They're walking across this white jagged line, but as they walk, they make the checkerboard configuration. So again, more symbolism of the Stargate. And it's curious, this new video I'm working on right now, I'm not really sure what direction it's going in, but there's a Beatles video called "And I Love Her" that I checked out on YouTube, and basically it's Paul McCartney standing in front of this gigantic black hexagon. The whole thing is black and white, so you have some black hexagons and some white hexagons, and you have sort of Paul McCartney's head right smack in the middle of one as he's singing "As I Love Her," and that's what I'm talking about. The symbolism comes from absolutely every medium. It comes from movies, it comes from books, it comes from comics, it comes from music videos, it comes from musical content. Todd Campbell from Through the Looking Glass has some phenomenal work on. He brings up a lot of sort of musical elements into the synchro circles, like basically Soundgarden having Spoon Man and having Black Hole Sun being very relevant to sort of Stargate imagery and the bending of the spoon in the Matrix being Spoon Man, and California Uber Alles by the Dead Kennedys and the sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger craziness that's going on right now. I mean, that's again fiction or movies blurring into reality. You have Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, or Sun God, as Jake has referred to him. Reigning over his Californian kingdom of fire. With Bohemian Grove just down the block from him. And there's something really apocalyptic and biblically foreboding about the whole thing, I think. And Goro Adichie from Edmonenki, which is another brilliant site. He has a great photo up of Arnold right now that has him sort of at the center of the picture as the Terminator, and he has his meridian lines that mirror around the globe, and the first line intersects where the California fires were blazing, and then the mirror image line interestingly intersects with the Iranian-Pakistan region on the other side. And he has a definition of the Terminator. It's the line between the day side and the night side of the planetary body.
That's right.
So you have Arnold the Terminator reigning over this, blazing fire in California, and the Terminator line on the opposite side of the globe is going right through the Babylonian conflict in Iran and Pakistan. It's just so that's what I'm saying. It can basically, and that goes back to the hyperdimensional model, how things sort of pop out of the tetrahedron at 19.5 degrees or 33 degrees. These geometries are inside the planets. The planets are alive, and they sort of communicate this way, just like Arnold communicates to us from the podium as the Terminator. We see all these things blur together. It's like, again, makes your mind want to just implode.
Definitely. Absolutely.
And, it's every medium. So I know you just had, sorry, what was his name? Christopher Knowles on?
That's right. Yep.
Author of our Gods Wear Spandex, I believe.
That's right.
There's a new member of sort of the synchro circles that all of us, go back to for advice and sort of help through making these videos, this whole process. His name's Adam Starr. His blog is called Inside the Cosmic Cube. And he writes a brilliant column where he picks apart episodes of the TV show Lost with sort of like a keen OCD-like observation.
Oh, yeah.
And he also has some absolutely wonderful comic book syncs as well. He sort of specializes in blue people who resonate Vishnu and the magic mushroom. Being as if you touched a psilocybe mushroom, they sort of bruise a shade of indigo. And that makes me go on another tangent, Rather interesting, the term indigo children.
Yep.
It's become so popular lately, and these little blonde-haired, blue-eyed Ubermensch star children, again with the, Arnold sync being the Ubermensch of California. I mean, this is what our brains do, They create these sort of paintings, and all my videos is sort of taking different folders that you normally don't associate with each other and putting them together, and then you're just like, holy crap, wow, I never would have taken these two things and put them, face to face like this and made such a montage. And it really is an art form, and I think that it's really beautiful. And I think that when people start to see that it's not just about conspiracy nonsense, and it's more of the beauty of what we're creating as a species, that it'll catch on like wildfire.
Yeah, exactly.
Not like the California wildfires, but like wildfire.
Exactly. Not a deadly wildfire, but yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned a little bit about the music, some music, and this is very interesting. I think you have great music in the background to a lot of your videos, and I also saw that you had for your what do you call the avatar on your YouTube channel, you had the one cover of the from Tool. I can't remember what album that is, but talk a little bit, if you want to, about your music influences and some of the bands that you like.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I formed a band about 4 months ago called Lysergicide. We're basically like 60s psychedelic rock meets sort of Alice in Chains, early 90s sort of the Seattle grunge movement type stuff, and even some really technical metal aspects like Opeth, like Sweden's Own. I don't know if you're a fan. They're from Stockholm, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I like all kinds of. I'm really easy to please musically. I love the Doors, Pink Floyd, anything from the early '90s movement, Nirvana, Soundgarden. I love all types of different metal. Alice in Chains is probably my favorite band, either them or Opeth. And I try to make like a really good. I honestly try to incorporate the songs to have applicable meanings to the videos.
Sure. I
use Tool a lot because their lyrics and their kind of driving momentum is about ascension and evolution of consciousness and psychedelics, and I find sort of that adds an element to the videos that I'm presenting because they sort of coincide with the same theme. And there's even times when I'll not purposely, but there'll be lyrics in the song that coincide almost exactly with the image that I'm showing. And a lot of those are coincidences, and they sort of really add to the process, I find.
Interesting. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, I've heard background music from, the Matrix, of course, original soundtrack that they have, and some Tool you mentioned, and also I think I heard either it was Radiohead or Tom York in there. I'm a big fan of theirs.
I love Radiohead as well. I mean, anything with pristine vocal harmonies or pristine production. I also like Ulver very much. Typo Negative, Sisters of Mercy, a lot of the 80s kind of goth movement I like very much.
Sure.
Joy Division. I love Joy Division. I'm just a huge fan of music. There's no limit to the kind of genre I would listen to. I don't listen to a whole lot of rap or country music, but mostly just psychedelic elements of rock and roll and everything up until the early 90s, and then eventually metal in the 80s. I love it all.
Nice. I wanna return and ask a little bit more about some of the psychedelics. Would you say that psychedelic drugs is a kind of has been an essential part in your awakening process?
Honestly, I think that like I was saying before, you could attain certain states of mind of ascension and in meditative states. You could sort of quiet your mind and get to those points. I've always had really, really vivid sort of dream sequences. I've been keeping a dream journal since I was probably about 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. And every night I have the most intense sort of REM cycles. And I credit this to a near-death experience that I had when I was 6 years old. I was sitting at the edge of a pool. It was a pretty deep pool, 9-foot pool. And I didn't know how to swim, obviously. I was very young. And I had this Snoopy life jacket, so I would float or whatever. And it was a little bit too large for me, so my dad's like, all right, don't go in the pool. I'm going to take this jacket and go inside for a second and adjust it. Just don't go in the pool. So, of course, I went in the pool, and I dropped to the bottom of it. I think it was a 9-foot pool, and I was under there for quite some time, 7 or 8 minutes, and I had an out-of-body experience. Mm-hmm. And that was more profound than any psychedelic I've ever taken in my life, because I saw sort of the shell of the universe sort of just melt in front of me, and I saw that everything that we were doing here was sort of more associated with death than life, and that death was your actual birth, and that was your home, and then that was sort of where, your stardust and what made you and comprised your DNA came from. And, and when they pulled me out of the pool and I started choking and, all this water started shooting out everywhere, I realized, that this place is more of a description of hell than anything else. I hated it. I hated trying to breathe. I hated, going back into my body